Welcome to First Writings. My name is Dwayne Wesley. I'm the chair of the Computer and Information Sciences Department here at Mesa College. My best ideas come from my students. And it was a Mesa robotics student who came up with the idea of hosting a speaking event called First Fridays, where the speaker ends up speaking on some topic concerning technology and the impact that it has on our lives. Today's event is quite special. With the generous sponsorship of the Humanities Institute, the CISC department and the Mesa Robotics Organization have brought an academic luminary. By way of introduction, I'd like to share with you a couple of my favorite quotes. Alan Kay, who is one of the principal developers of the first desktop computer, once said, "The best way to predict the future is to invent it." Mahatma Gandhi famously said, "You must be the change you wish to see in the world." This morning we pose a question: will technology change the way we teach humanities? Our guest speaker, through his positions as CTO at Stanford University and Assistant Dean of the Graduate School of Education at Stanford, is actively inventing the future. And he is bringing about wondrously positive, immensely positive change throughout the world. He's a renowned innovator of learning technologies and a global social activist. He's an inspiration to me personally, and I'm confident that he will inspire you as well. Please join me in a warm welcome to Dr. Paul Kim.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for coming, and thank you for inviting me here. I'm so honored to be here giving a talk, and I'd like to engage in some interesting dialogues with you this morning. I have a very interesting job at Stanford. I develop various educational technology solutions, and I experiment them, and then I talk about them. So this morning I'd like to share a little bit about what I have learned through my journey at Stanford. And then the topic today here is designing a new learning environment. I started my career in the computer science areas, and then I moved on to education space because I realized that how important education is. It was for me as well. It can really change people's lives. So that was sort of my inspiration, and I decided to work more in the area. So I'm going to talk a lot about learning environments, various kinds of learning environments. Obviously, different learning environments have different purposes. There are different andragogies. There are many different kinds of views on learning and platforms, system features, and how to evaluate learning. And what is learning? And all these things are changing very rapidly as well. So the key point is the learning environments evolve, and they really must evolve. And sometimes the needs change, the technology options change, operation models change. But what we have not seen enough of it is the pedagogies and andragogies, the teaching and learning models. So I'll briefly touch upon a little bit of what happened in the past and where we are, and I'm going to go into what I have done in the medieval time. It was a classroom. There was a professor, someone very wise, share his perspectives, and there are students who are engaged in dialogues with the professor and other colleagues. Back then, they had the needs for creating, advancing, and documenting knowledge. But it was for very privileged people. It was not for everybody. So the education space has evolved, and we need even more systematic approaches to educate the masses with the skills and knowledge. And fortunately, more people participated. However, the clock speed of evolution in the education space is it's been slow and it's still slow. And those who can and want to come to school, this is an example. They got more technology options. But as you can see, that students are sitting in their seats with some technology options there. But there's a professor who's lecturing, and they're taking notes, and they're going to take exams. More technology options. There are some mobile devices, tablets, that have been introduced in classrooms. But my question is, the learning models, have they really changed? Do they learn differently? If so, how differently? My personal observation is that not much different from the old days. And there were a group of people who could not or would not come to school for whatever reasons. And there were always options for them to study wherever they are. This advertisement is from 1922. You could learn wireless technology from home, right? So distance education was available back then as well. And then there's some interesting things happened. Something like this. I don't know if you remember modems back then. That you plug into your telephone and you hear the sound and it connects you. If you look at some of their, we're talking about 1980s or early 90s or so. The options were quite interesting. Back then, you were able to post a message to a bulletin board, and you could join a conference, even back then, and you were able to vote. And you had your profile so that people could look up and see who's with you in your classroom. And they were able to email to their friends, and they were able to read various reading materials in the system. So that's early stage online education. A company like the University of Phoenix, they started their online education in 1987. So now they have 500,000 students generating about $2.2 billion of revenue. It's a company. I call them company. That is a university. And then things have changed. There were Yahoo, and Google, and the search engines came about. It really changed the way that we seek data, information, and knowledge. Because these search engines made it possible for you to search for just about anything you can search. Because things are connected, and you can find various kinds of things. So that's why I think that they made some changes. And Wikipedia came about. Open source content and collective curation. Global massive consumption. There are 30 million articles in 286 languages, and there are 77,000 active lead volunteers adding to this database. They're creating descriptions of various things around the world, and they're refining it. And a lot of times they have arguments about certain things, and then they correct them and so forth. And then YouTube came about, and it really changed some things that the people were able to share. Basically, with the YouTube, anyone can show, explain, demonstrate, teach anything with videos. Anything you can capture with your video camera or your mobile phone, you were able to share and reach out to the world. And there's a collective rating. People can rate certain contents here in YouTube. And then it kind of encouraged those people who really want to share their knowledge and skills. Because these guys, they're sharing how to work on their Harley-Davidson motorcycle. And then people pay for that content. People pay here $6.99 or a month or $49.99 a year. So now the YouTube with the paid subscription, it kind of changes the model again. Anyone can share, and they can sustain their business by charging people. And some people were very successful, like this lady here, Michelle Peng. she just started to put some videos about how to do makeups. And suddenly, so many people were interested in her videos. And now she established her own company. And it took her about 2 years to have millions of viewers around the world. So from just doing things for hobby, and now she's doing it as her job with the millions of viewers around the world. Very interesting. Now there are companies out there that want to help you do this even better and easier. Company like Udemy. They created this environment where anyone can create videos and teach, and people can learn, and you could set up your own educational service through companies like Udemy. So things have really changed, and people can learn different skill sets in many different ways. There are so many options. And their company, it's more of a non-profit organization, Mozilla Foundation. They are working on creating open badge system. Basically, people can learn from various places, and then if they earn badges, and they're going to keep track of who can do what and who knows what. And by earning enough badges, you'll be able to present them to your prospective employers and others who are interested in your skill sets and knowledge. So it's kind of creating a very interesting phenomenon out there in the education space. And obviously, I think many of you have LinkedIn accounts. People start to endorse each other. If you're an expert on something, then you endorse someone. Like, well, you have a really good skill sets on something, and therefore I endorse you, and so forth. Right now, it's a very infancy stage, I think, because even if someone endorse you, an expert endorse you, unless it is Bill Gates or someone really popular and famous, if Paul Kim endorsed you, it doesn't really mean much. But who knows? Things may change. Things may change. So what we have learned, learning needs are ubiquitous. Almost anytime, anywhere, anybody, anything, and anyhow, people can learn different things in different ways. And suddenly, there's so many technology options out there to access and evaluate learning experiences collectively. And obviously, there are more on-demand learning contents, skill training, information sharing, knowledge exchanging, wisdom spreading. However, to date, accredited degrees from institutions still have higher values than badges from experts. And probably it's going to be that way for a very long time. What's common in all of these is that basically we can come down to this: supply and demand. If people ask for it, there will be some people who will be providing solutions. So if there are needs, there will be models and approaches that will address those needs. And in our case, in the education space, what does it mean? Is a sustainable engagement. When people want to learn, we want them to be able to engage in a certain learning environments and solutions, and we want them to engage in a sustainable manner. But it is a very difficult journey, actually, from needs to clicks in the online education space. I use the word click to simplify. Clicks means students can view, read, solve problems, respond to certain questions, etc. But in fact, in online education, the journey between the needs and clicks, it's a very long journey. I have tracked some numbers from some of the major online universities. For example, University of Phoenix, 50% of the students drop out in the very first class. And less than 10% of the students graduate. So you can kind of guess, how many students they have to pump in to maintain 500,000 students in their class. So technology cannot really learn on your behalf. I mean, we have a lot of positive ideas about technology, but technology cannot do everything for you. It's you that you have to do things. You have to put efforts to finish and complete. In the educational research area, there have been a lot of research studies on behavioral, cognitive, attitudinal, or increasing the social dimensions of learning. Now, my personal observation is that we need to do more studies on non-cognitive dimension or metacognitive dimension, and we need to know more about school environment, living environment, and these are the areas that I think that will make a lot of difference in students' learning experiences. And by helping students develop these non-cognitive skills, helping them to develop and maintain, they will become better learners. And they'll be able to effectively manage their resources. They'll be able to come up with a better planning for their learning tasks, etc. So these are the sort of the last frontiers in the education research. Now, people talk a lot about big data that are coming with online education and technology-based education. But I think that what we're going to learn from analyzing big data that are going to come is that we need more support systems for students to be able to successfully complete their programs, to help them stay in classrooms, help them engage in their learning activities. And those are going to be affected by technological advancement. But still, we have a long way to go. There are companies like uboost.com, which focuses on helping students get recognition. Basically, if you do your assignments on time, if you complete your assignments in the sort of best manner, and if you're helping your friends complete assignments as well, you get points. And this system tracks all those points so that if you earn enough points, you can redeem your points. You can redeem it to get an iPad or some sort of extrinsic sort of artifacts that will help you get engaged in your learning events. So these are sort of experimental. These are not in the mainstream yet, but there are various interesting technology solutions that are coming in our way. So those were sort of the background in terms of what happened in the several decades and what kind of shaped our work today. A little bit about my background. I've been very much interested in mobile learning, and I'll talk more about why I am so interested in mobile learning. We have about 7 billion people on Earth. How many phones out there? More than 6 billion phones now. 6 billion phones. How many phones in your drawers not being used today? 3 billion. That's a lot of phones in your drawers. In fact, we have more mobile phone users than toothbrush users in this world. It is amazing. There are a lot of people who do not have toothbrushes still today. So I've been traveling in Africa. This is from Kenya. As you can see in the picture, they're getting water. They're fetching water. And then there's a sign here, mobile, 20 shillings per minute. Basically, what it means is that mobile minutes have become as important as water. It's your lifeline. And there are a lot of people who are doubting about, mobile, it's a small device, you can't really see much. What can you really do other than talking to your friends? But in some of these areas, mobile phone is the only way to talk to anybody outside of their town. And in terms of their connectivity, it's amazing. This figure here is from last year, actually. So if you go back there this year, things will be very much different. Tanzania Airtel, they have this much coverage, 3.75G. I don't know what that is. I think it's between 3G and 4G. But I get better signal in Dar es Salaam, Tanzania, than San Francisco. Seriously. I was able to send photos and watch YouTube and all those things in Dar es Salaam. But when I'm in San Francisco, sometimes I don't have signal. I have only one bar and things like that. So the world is really changing fast, really fast. And as you can see on the list, there are many countries out there that have similar coverages of wireless access. 2006, that's when I started mobile learning research. I was traveling. It's not too far from where we are right now. We can drive about 10 hours south from here, and you will get to these areas. These kids are mostly from Oaxaca mountains, and they speak Mixtec and Zapotec. They don't speak Spanish. And they do not have books. They don't have schools. So for some reason, I was able to actually, the reason that I went there was to build houses for these people. And then I realized that they don't have school. So I had to think, how can I help these kids? They don't have access to school. They're not going to have a book. They never seen any television in their lives. What's their future? So I started to think, if there's a way to put educational contents in small devices, what can they do? Can they even figure it out? Those were my questions. And in fact, these kids were great scientists. They were able to figure things out very fast. I put Spanish stories and then sing-along songs and various educational contents on these devices, and they love them. They love them. They have a lot of time, actually. So they were finishing stories very quickly. I mean, you hear the stories. They weren't able to read the text, but they were able to see the text and then hear the stories and sing along the songs that were loaded on these devices. So I started that project in 2006, and these are the early devices that I used. And then I kind of moved to various different devices and expanded my project to more places around the world. This picture is from Rwanda, playing math game on these mobile devices. And this kind of convinced me that, without the mobile devices, there's no way you can reach out to these kids out in these areas. This is from India, Jharkhand village children figuring out mobile learning device. Their school is not really school. UNESCO has numbers. UNESCO reports that there are about 70 million children out of school, completely out of school. And that doesn't mean those kids in school are getting quality education. Many cases, the schools are not the kinds of school you would expect. They have maybe 2 hours of instruction a day and a couple of days of instruction a week. And the teacher has barely finished high school degree. So that's the reality today. So I developed the various types of mobile learning games. Game-based education was a key because I cannot give them the conventional curriculum to these kids because they don't have teachers there to supervise them. So kids love games. They love to play games, and by playing games, they learn math and literacy and numeracy, etc. So this particular game, written in Hindi, it's a farming simulation game. You take a loan, and then you buy seeds, and you plant them, you grow them and harvest them, and you sell them, you pay back interest, and you eventually pay off your principal, etc. Kids play these games really well, really well. How about places where there's no electricity? So I had to figure out various things. Hand cranks, solar cell, bicycle, and little rickshaws in villages where they have batteries. You plug them into the batteries, and you can provide the mobile learning options to these kids living in villages. And I created a mobile learning network router, basically. This little box that has your Linux operating system running, and it has the storage, it has the Wi-Fi, it has the router, everything in one box. So I started to experiment this in villages with the little batteries there from rickshaws and automobiles. And I was able to carry these to villages to have mobile learning network set up in schools. And a company called Marvell got interested in commercializing this product. They call it Smile Plug. Now you can buy it for $200. It's still expensive in my opinion. I think that it should be less than $50 to make a real impact in the developing regions. But basically, it creates an instant mobile learning network. And interestingly, many countries in the developing region are beginning to distribute various computing devices. So for example, in Thailand, they have a one tablet per child program. So each child gets a tablet when they start in their first grade. And so I was able to experiment my mobile learning solutions in various countries. So the project is called SMILE, Stanford Mobile Inquiry-Based Learning Environment. With SMILE, we don't teach students about things, but we ask them to make questions. So students make questions, they can take pictures of things, and then they share their questions with their peers, and then they solve them, and they rate them, and they present them, and that's how they learn. It's a little different. I don't want to use the word flipped classrooms. I mean, people use flipped classrooms a lot, where you watch videos at home and do your homework at school. That's the flipped model. But in this, it's different kind of flip. Students are creating the questions. We're not giving them questions, but students are coming up with the questions. And there's no memorization whatsoever. Students do not memorize things. They learn by creating questions and solving them and sharing them. This picture is from India, a rural village setting where students are taking photos of their textbooks and making questions. And I asked these students, why did you make this question? And they said, well, I think this is a very important question, but this question is not in the textbook. So I wanted to make this question and share it with my friends. I really like that answer. They are creators. They are not passive consumers of contents. In Tanzania, I experimented the same solution. In this rural village called Nuala in Tanzania, the kids don't have textbooks, but they wanted to learn English. So I gave them this mobile learning solution, and they were able to create various kinds of ESL contents. Basically, they took pictures of things, and then their question is, what is this in English? So within 20, 30 minutes, they were able to create various kinds of learning objects to help them learn English each other. Indonesia, in a rural village setting, where they are making math questions and they are sharing on themselves. So some of the advanced students come up with advanced questions. And the, let's say, less advanced students would come up with more interesting questions, because sometimes they have flaws in their questions. And as a student, your goal is to analyze your friends' questions, because you know that your friends' questions are not perfect. So you have to figure out what is wrong with the question. This is a very different kind of learning. When you are given a standardized test, you just solve them. But in this case, when you're exchanging questions with your peers, you're analyzing the questions and finding flaws, and you're correcting them, and then you're rating them and you're discussing them. So it's a very different kind of learning environment. In Argentina rural village, we tried a little different experiment here. We asked the students to come up with any questions you like. Nothing from their standard curriculum or textbooks, but anything they believe that's important for them. And they came up with questions on homelessness and depression and bullying. And they said that these are important topics that we never talk about in schools. So it was very interesting to give opportunities to students to come up with their own questions that they think is important. So what I'm trying to do in my research is that I'm trying to focus on higher order learning, not just lecturing and remembering, and oftentimes students forget them. But I want students to apply their knowledge. I want them to create, and I want them to evaluate. And these are the kinds of learning activities I would like to have in my learning environments. This is from Mexico, where students are practicing making questions on paper and then transferring their questions to mobile phones. In the same school, I noticed one of these questions was a little bit weird. They said, who was celebrated in 1851 in London? That was the question. These are fifth grade students in one of rural mountain area school. It's called Agua Caliente. The teacher was surprised that these kids did not know how to spell celebra. The teacher never knew that these kids weren't able to spell celebra correctly until this moment. Within about 40 minutes of this activity, the teacher was able to identify exactly what was misunderstood by the students. And also, this particular question, the problem in here is that the answer choices, Prince Albert was not the man who was celebrated in London in 1851. He was the man who organized World Exposition in London in 1851. So they read the books, but they read it incorrectly. So within about 40 minutes, we were able to identify a lot of issues that the students had. The teacher never knew any of these until that moment. Now they use this more actively because this is a learning and assessment at the same time. In Argentina Medical School, students were able to use this learning method in their fourth or fifth year of their medical school. Students teamed up together and they created questions. And what was obvious in there was that the professors were not able to answer these questions the students came up with because they teamed up. Because some of the students were in the specialty programs, internal medicine, orthopedic, or dermatology, and various specialties. And then when they got together and created questions, they came up with questions that the professors never seen before. Very creative questions, very meaningful activity for the students. So now they love this activity and they're at the medical school. South Korea, a lot of kids there have many kinds of devices. They have mobile phones, tablets, and so this is a bring your own device policy. The school doesn't have to provide any of the devices because students already have them. In Asian culture, students do not ask questions. Because if you ask questions, it's sort of violating the rule. That's in the culture. Not in the US. Students raise their hands, ask questions freely, but in many of the Asian countries, students, they don't ask questions. But with this particular learning model, students make questions anyway. So the students were able to participate and they felt that they were really engaged in their learning. And we implemented that project at Stanford Medical School, and as well as a medical school in Zimbabwe, Africa. And so we now have exchange programs with a Smile Global. What it is basically we analyze the questions that are created by the students in Zimbabwe. So we look at their questions and see whether they are improving, whether they are learning more, whether they are learning things more accurately, and so forth. So questions are the data for us. It's not just the score cards, like someone has A, B, C. It's not that. What we are looking for is the questions. And the questions, the quality matters to us. And these are some of the sample questions that they came up with on the topic of HIV/AIDS. And I have done it in Jordan and many other countries in Africa as well. And I learned a lot from doing that. Also, I learned that many of these schools do not have any science labs. Because they do not have any science labs, they will never have any science experiment in their life. So I was thinking, if I could give them a real science lab that's available at Stanford, but they can access it from their mobile devices, from wherever they are. And that's this project, ROSE, Remotely Operated Science Experiment. It's a mobile, real-time science experimental tool. So that if you have a phone or tablet, you can access this real-time science lab from wherever they are, and then they can engage in real science experiments. This is from one of the rural villages in Bihar, India, accessing this real science lab located at Stanford. We have developed the various experimental labs, optics lab, climate change labs, etc. So the question is, how can you sustain some of these innovations? Oftentimes we get excited about technology, and sometimes people think that it's the cost that's innovation. India government, they funded this project, Akash project, to come up with a $45 Android tablet. And then Canadian company came up with a $20 tablet. And they said, wow, it's innovative. But the reality about technology and education is that a project like in Uruguay, the One Laptop Per Child project, after 450,000 notebook computers distributed in schools, what percentage of the notebooks are being used?
All of them?
No. 25%. So what happened to 75% of the notebooks? They're not being used. So giving hardware, software doesn't mean that it's going to be used in classrooms. So we have to think about some of these things before we commit to provide technology in classrooms. So the phenomena are that a lot of people are concerned about unit cost. Cost. If you bring down the cost, then something big can happen, and that's innovation. And I do not agree with that. And a lot of people are so concerned about number of units deployed. Or some people think that if it is open source, it's free, people will use it. That's not true either. And more importantly, if you can display and deliver, that means they're going to learn. That's not true either. Display and delivering doesn't mean that students are going to learn. And there are a lot of flipped classroom models, but if you flip in the same box, I don't think that you're really making a big difference. And there isn't much focus on pedagogical paradigm shift, meaning, we want to stay away from lecture, memorizing, and exam model. We want to stay away from it, but we don't see enough of those new models. So I think that what the important factors that we have to be considering are, technology is important because it enables, it creates new opportunities, but we got to have a content that's more contextualized. And on top of that, we got to have a right type of pedagogy that will drive the technology. And more importantly, we have to consider what values that the setup can bring to the learning environment. And that's something that I have learned. However, we have a social DNA issue. What I mean by social DNA is that when you look at these two pictures, which one do you like better? Which one do you think that there's some learning happening? The one with the book, right? These beautiful children are reading books together. This little boy looking at a phone, he must be playing some games. That's the perception that we have. Actually, he was documenting his science experiment. He was videotaping it and sharing with his friends, and he's making comments. That's a whole new kind of learning. But still, we have the DNA in our brain. With the mobile phones today, there are so many applications that you can apply in a learning environment. You can measure things, analyze. And then, as I showed you this picture earlier, students are creating and capturing, sharing, collaborating, evaluating each other's work. All these are possible today. And I noticed a big challenge, even bigger than social DNA challenge. When I was doing this project in Africa, I noticed that students are asking all kinds of questions that are not in the textbook. And they're combining multiple subjects when they ask questions. The teachers have a problem with that because they cannot answer those questions. They cannot facilitate learning in such an environment. And maybe not here in the US, but out there, the teachers do not want to lose their authority. That I am the sole source of knowledge. And that was the biggest barrier from my research. Therefore, it is very difficult to implement this new type of learning environment. and I don't know, I need help to figure that out. How do I remove the barrier in a way that teachers not just feeding students with information, but they are facilitating learning and recognizing individual strengths in students. So beyond and hardware, I ran into so many barriers, so many challenges, and obviously I always say that we need to look at education at the ecosystematic level. And then there's a colleague who wrote a book, The Wide Lens, and basically what he's saying is that we need to look at things with a much wider lens. You cannot just look at technology or innovation alone. Too many big problems, so I couldn't solve, so I had to do something about it. And this is what I did. I created a course called the Designing a New Learning Environment, and I tweeted 6 tweets in the Twitter that I'm offering this course. Anyone can take this course from anywhere. Open door policy. No credits at the end, but anyone was able to take this course. So I ended up with 20,000 students from 170 countries. I put small videos, very short videos, and very hands-on project assignments, and a lot of discussions. And what was interesting was that students were tweeting my tweets, retweeting and retweeting in multiple languages in various countries. And I was quite impressed about the power of social media. I had a Twitter account, but I never used it until that moment. And then I tweeted only 6 times, and that was it, to start this fire. And I was really impressed. When students from Pakistan, Lahore, Pakistan, signed up for this course, I was wondering, how did he find this course? And then there was a student from Zanzibar, Tanzania. Oh my goodness. How did they even find this course and manage to sign up? It was really eye-opener. And then this is quite Facebook style. Students can see each other's photos, they can read each other's profiles. And I created short videos, not 40-minute or 1-hour-long lecture videos. I put 5-minute max videos. And then I came up with very simple messages in each video. It's not about a lot of jargons. It's a very straightforward, simple message. And I posted messages that are quite sort of motivating. And in fact, the very first message that I posted in this class, I did it from Tanzania. And I basically said to students, hey guys, I'm in Tanzania right now working on my project. I'm so glad to teach you from Tanzania. And so kind of got students interested in this course even more. And I had other guest speakers from various other universities to come in. And students had their face-to-face meetings. They had meetups scheduled in various cities around the world. And even in San Diego, they had various face-to-face meetups. And these are some of the pictures that they took when they had the face-to-face meetups. So these are the students who were in their class together. And they get together, have a dinner, have drinks, have fun, and get connected and continue with their dialogue. Another thing that I found quite fascinating was that some of the students downloaded all my videos and translated them in multiple languages and reposted. I did not pay them to do it. I did not ask them to do it. And so the videos became available in Spanish, Chinese, Arabic, etc. And some students even went further. They downloaded all the videos and created low bandwidth videos, basically for students who have low bandwidth internet access. So they did that. And some students took note of all the words that I said in the class, and they provided a transcript, and some of them even provided definitions. I did not ask them to do it. And they start to nominate each other, like, oh, someone did some great work for the class. I think he or she need to be nominated for an award. And I didn't have any award to give. So I ended up sending them t-shirts. So I learned a lot by doing this experiment. As I said earlier, I do experiments with these things. Students came up with various projects. They created videos and then they posted their YouTube videos as an assignment. And all the projects were team projects, so students had to team up together to work on various projects. And in order to finish this course, you had to earn respect from your team members. So there's no free ride. If you do not get enough points from your peers, you do not finish. So students were able to use these these tools to evaluate your peers and other team members' projects on various categories. So I provided all these rubrics for them to use when they were evaluating each other's work. So again, in this class, was not focused on giving long lectures, but it focused on having students create, analyze, share, evaluate, etc. So after 10 weeks, 1,000 students in 270 teams finished the course. I wanted to give the statement of completion to 200 students actually. I did not want to give to too many students. I wanted to make it really precious, rare opportunity, but I ended up giving to 1,000 students. These are the students who were never late in submitting the assignment, and they earned 5 stars from their peers. So unlike other similar courses where you watch a few videos and solve some problems and you finish, in this course you had to do a lot of work to finish. And what I noticed was that those students who teamed up in the 3rd week, they were the ones who completed the project. Those students who weren't in the teams didn't get to complete the course. So it means something. I think that I have learned something very important. It is important to get students to work in teams so that they can encourage each other to get to the final line. And some of the projects were very interesting as well. Students came up with projects like School Without Classrooms, School on Wheels for the 21st century, various projects that they came up with as a final course project. They even created their own website after the class, and they put some comments like these. It was very interesting to learn from the students by teaching this course. Some student comments like this: I don't do Facebook, I don't do Twitter, I don't do Google+. There's nothing to do, but I like this course because I felt that I was doing something, advancing in knowledge and experience, sharing, collaborating, and growing. And they wanted to maintain the community even after the course. So they even created their own LinkedIn groups to work on projects. And this was, I think, the most inspiring case. The student said, I attended this course and decided to devote myself in solving underserved education problem. That gets me going. That gets me work more in this area. So here are the outcomes. I was able to recruit a lot more volunteers to work on my projects around the world. And I really realized the power of social media. And I was very happy to receive thousands of thank you letters from these students from around the world. And I never received that many letters in my life. However, there are a lot of criticism about this. I have a lot of arrows on my back after doing this. Oxford University was an interesting case. Well, some of the students from Oxford took this class, and then they talked to their professors, and the professors invited me to come to Oxford and give a talk. And some students who were in the talk said, well, I want to do the project that you are working on. And now they went to India to implement some of these projects. Like this student here on the right, she's an Oxford MBA student who is implementing the SMILE project in India, Delhi, in a slum school. And some of the students here in the Bay Area wanted to take these projects to East Palo Alto, one of the underserved communities, and they wanted to do a science-focused SMILE project there as well. So the course ended a long time ago, but students are still connecting to each other. They are working on projects and they're reporting. Another case here that's quite interesting is this middle school student who said, I hope that my team and I will create a new learning environment that could change the course of other children's life. This is a middle school student who took the course as well. Very interesting. All these things reminded me of this book. If you have a chance, pick up this book. It's a very interesting book. The DIYU book. Basically, doing it yourself university. And she talks about new possibilities in the better connected world and learning in the global context. If you pick up this book, you should read the last chapter. And you will really like that chapter. I promise. Someone said this: the millennial students, those earning higher education degrees in the 21st century, walking through our doors, don't just want to make money. They want to make a difference. I think this is sort of the theme that we find from the younger generation. So what I found from all these is that students want to learn to change together. And they want to be recognized for their work as well. So how do we design our courses? How do we design learning activities so that they will feel the sense of community and sense of achievement and sense of recognition at the end? So how do we design our activities and courses from these findings will be very interesting. There are many possibilities, but as I said earlier, I have a lot of arrows on my back, and people are saying that I'm diluting the academic rigor. Why would you go out teach everybody outside? Well, I have a problem with that. I think that I like openness. I like to teach everybody if I can. And I think that we shouldn't be arguing about the offline, online, all these things anymore. We should talk about online learning for all. And the problem here in the education space is if anything is disruptive, innovation is disruptive. That's the kind of the mindset in the education space. So we need to change that. And we have a very slow clock speed in the education space. Things move very slowly. They don't move like the technology world. So a lot of people think about flipping things and then they want to think out of the box, and some people can't think out of the box. They just still want to be in the same classroom and teach the same way and learn the same way. And they feel very comfortable. But I think the world is different, and I think we need to evolve with the rest of the world. And if you cannot evolve, you may want to get a new watch. Get a new clock speed for yourself. There was a philosopher, educational philosopher in Brazil, Paulo Freire. He mentioned about a few things. I think he predicted the future. He mentioned that the learning is a recurring passage through a cyclical process of experiential learning and reflection and action upon the world in order to transform it. And that's the view that he had. And if he was alive, I think they'll be very happy to see what's happening today. So overall, change is very hard. As we all know, change is very difficult. A new approach, if you try something, it may look strange and awkward even. And even you may have doubts about yourself as well. If people are saying negative things about what you're doing and how you do things. I get that a lot as well. So it's a long journey. It's a long journey. And you get recognized only if you succeed. Only if you succeed. So if you're doing something to change the world, remember these. It's a long journey. Change is hard, but if you have sustained commitment, I think that you will be able to make a difference. How many of you know this gentleman, Dick Foster? Many of you know. He's the guy who did the high jump, the backward. He was the first one to do it, right? And then after that, everybody does that way. But when he was trying to do this, a lot of people said, like, why are you doing that? That's not the way everybody does. But he proved himself. He did it. Now it's standard. So change is hard. And I can sense that how difficult it must have been for him to prove that this is a better way. So I think that we may feel the same way when we try to change. So what can we do as educators, those who are educators, and I think learners as well? We learn and teach each other. So if you're teaching, you're learners as well. So all learners. And I'd like to share this piece of art was created by this person here, Liam Callaghan. His piece of art is quite interesting. He put the broken mirrors on the floor. Broken mirrors and what's reflected on the wall. It's beautiful lights. I think that's who we are. We're not perfect. We may be broken. We may be in pieces. But we can still reflect the light. So I think that's what we can do as educators and learners. And I would love to take your questions. Questions? Yes.
Is there any for-profit university that you actually think is doing a good job with its academic rigor?
There are for-profit universities out there. University of Phoenix, Strayer, and there are a few other universities that are doing pretty well. They all need to be accredited by accreditation agencies. Doing well doesn't mean making good money, right? I mean, doing well means they are providing quality education. I think that they have a lot of challenges. For example, a lot of students who come to those for-profit universities expect a lot. And many of them are non-traditional students, meaning that they weren't right out of high school, and they are often underprepared. So they have a lot of challenges helping those students succeed. That's why they have a real high number of dropouts out of those programs. So it's hard to just blame them that, why do you have higher dropout rates? It is hard to say that. But I don't want to pick a particular for-profit university, but I think that what I can say is that they go through the same accreditation, and in order to maintain their accreditation. So if they are accredited by 6 regional accreditation agencies, I think that they are at least doing a minimal required job of providing education. Oftentimes they focus on project-based learning, which I think is a very good thing, and they bring in industry experts to come in and teach their courses. So I think that's also a good thing. But I cannot speak about whether they are providing real good quality education compared to the not-for-profit universities, because there are many not-for-profit universities that are doing not so good job as well. So it is hard to pick one or two. Yes.
I have 2 questions. One was, why did 75% of the Uruguayan children not use the laptops?
Right. So when they provided the hardware and some minimal number of software packages, they weren't relevant to the curriculum. So teachers, unless you're really champion teachers who want to develop your own programs out of that solution, many of the teachers didn't know what to do with them. And a lot of times, the teachers didn't even have email accounts. They never used Google search. And when you give them notebooks, they just didn't know what to do with them.
My second question is, now, the kind of teaching that you are doing in this experimental learning is very similar to civic engagement and service learning, actually, the results, the outcomes.
Yes.
They are non-credit. So tell me how this is even further helpful for students who need credits when they're going from course to course or different from level to level in higher education to get degrees. I understand the civic learning and the civic engagement part especially, because it really is fantastic. And that would be great to also connect that with in-class projects. or in-class courses.
Yes.
So tell me more why I think it's fantastic what you're doing, but it's non-credit. So
Right.
is that one of the arrows in the back that they keep digging into you, or what is it, the criticisms?
Well, there are many reasons, but I think I can talk about two things. One is that if you make your course more relevant and practical in the real world, I think that students would be more interested in learning. So I think that that's how you make your course more meaningful for students and relevant. And I think that we all should do that. One time I was speaking at a conference with the university ranking systems, and their question was, how should we rank universities in the future? And my answer was, well, we should look at their global impact. If they claim that, oh, we're a global university, we're doing great things, then let's look at their impact in the global space. And if you're not making global impact, then you should be ranked low. I think that translates into many things. How do you put together your curriculum to be more practical and meaningful, and so that you can make global impact out there? And that's something that we all should try to do that. I think that we should enhance our programs so that they become more relevant to this world, because it's a global. There's a global approach as well as a locally meaningful work that can be done by students and faculty at the local community level. So I think that it has to be well blended. The blended in this sense is not just blending between online and offline, but it's blending local and global. And if we can enhance our programs to be running in that fashion, I think it will be more successful. More students will be engaged in their learning activities. So it's something that we have to do, and I think that eventually we're kind of moving in that direction, but it's going to take some time. So we have a lot of work to do. Yes.
Why do you think, Dr. Kim, that MOOCs are causing fear to some faculty members around the United States, I would say?
Well, I think that it creates a lot of not only fears, but enthusiasm, as well as there are a lot of bystanders as well. They don't really care. The original MOOCs were defined as massive open online course. I think a lot of the MOOC players are now losing those original philosophies. Massiveness, they're shrinking their courses size, and it's hard to keep 100,000 students in the class all along. So many of the MOOC players are catering their courses to be smaller courses, so that they can have more interaction between faculty and students. So they're kind of losing that battle there as well. And openness, universities and colleges are not as open as we think they are. They're not that open. And it's going to take many, many years for them to be as open as those earlier MOOC players thought. If there are many courses out there taught by faculty members collaborating between universities, and the universities, the boundaries become blurry. If someone from Princeton teaching with someone in MIT and so forth, then where's the university? They are more faculty focused than the university focused. At the same time, today, faculty members can freely publish books as a part of their work. Nobody will have any issue with that. But they're not going to be able to freely publish MOOCs. That's a very awkward situation. And it's a very beginning stage. I think there'll be a lot more discussions. There'll be a lot of checks and balance. But I think that it's going to shape into a stage where the global classrooms and more openness will come along eventually. But until then, I think there will be a lot of discussions and debates. I came to this country after graduating high school in Korea. And I didn't speak English when I first came here. So it's been a huge struggle, and I still struggle with English. So if I studied, I kind of studied in a different way. I always try to use my whole senses. It's just not reading and memorizing, but I always try to visualize things, imagine things, and try to connect different things. If I look at a word and I try to imagine a few different images to bring that word back to my mind, So I try to use, it's called a total physical response, TPR. You are responding to the learning environment and the needs and activities with a whole sense. That's what I did, and I think that it helped a lot to understand and retain things that I have learned. So instead of just circling the word, trying to memorize, I see that a lot. I don't think that's really helpful. I think that you should respond totally. Try to create things. Try to engage more in some of the activities that you are dealing with, not just watching and then, well, I'm done. That's not learning, in my opinion. I think that you should do it. You should create things. You have to really immerse yourself in the environment. So that's my suggestion. Create, analyze, try to present. You can practice presenting yourself, in your room. You can summarize things and you try to present and see if you can do it really well. I mean, it's really helpful. You can look at your mirror and then present, things like that. That will help you retain more. Sure. Yes. Back there, sorry. We'll come back to you.
Yeah, you sound a lot like Isaac Asimov. There's a video in our library here. Asimov is talking about dissolving boundaries about how every baby on the planet Earth should have access to the collective knowledge of the human species. Without any worry about credits, without any worry about accreditation or anything like that. He also says in that same video that you cannot put people in factories and tell them to go and be creative. You have to beat the creativity out of them. So my concern is that you have these massive opportunities missed by all these people on the earth to be contributors to the global knowledge base. You have all of these power structures in place in terms of universities, governments, and so forth that are blocking this for protecting their territory or protecting their vested interests. And what I like about your presentation so much, and your work in all these different countries, is there seems to be a real authenticity about it, a right motive. And my concern is, how do you get these power structures that are in place currently in these universities, community colleges, and other places to support this kind of work, which requires reallocation of resources away from traditional areas and into areas that are going to be helpful in the future? Because to me, this seems almost more like a political battle than a pedagogical battle. And I just want to express gratitude to you for the work you've done.
Oh, thank you very much for your comments. I think that we should try to make best cases, best practices, and share as much as you can with as many people as you can. And that's the only way to really convince. I think we need some viral effect here. We need to kind of share in the circle, and, use the social media if you can, and share as much as you can with the world. And I think that will shorten the journey so that the systems can, in fact, change afterwards. I agree with you that we have a cookie cutter system here in our education system. We believe everyone should do the same thing in the same way at the same time, and then you come up with a product at the end of the conveyor belt. I don't really like that education system. I think that it's kind of making everybody to be the same. And we are preaching to the world that everyone is different. And we have the individual quality, we have individual talents, and the system ignores all that. So be yourself.
I would agree absolutely with what the gentleman said. And I see it as a political issue. You have been doing a great job, and I really want to congratulate you. In my opinion, there should be some strategy, because in order to really get into those people, the kids, and educate the teachers, or from a marketing perspective, see it as a big picture item. And because this is really great to have these kids being educated, misfortunate, poor, and all that. So you bring that society up a level, and but it has to be really an orchestrated way of looking into these kinds of countries, especially the third world countries, to how we're going to make that excellent thing you're providing be accepted by those kids. So it has to be a strategy to really.
I really appreciate your comments. I really love to sit down with you and talk about some of the strategies when you are available. I struggle a lot, and I try to talk to many people around me as well. And I'm doing a few other projects that are kind of the next stage projects. So next time when I'm here, will be glad to share those new things that I'm working on to address what you just have mentioned as well. So we'll go back to here.
Yeah, so you mentioned many like errors in your bags and the difficulties you have with colleagues in regards to, say, MOOCs and those opportunities. I was wondering if within your own university or within Stanford, you had any kind of difficulties with developing like your MOOC classrooms and that kind of that learning structure. And then if you had any kind of anecdotal like problems with anyone like at a closer basis.
Well, even I get that from students as well. You know, some students don't like it. Can you guess why?
They're paid, yeah.
Well, not only that, they don't want to be in a environment where they don't deserve to. With the students who don't deserve to be there, you know, that sort of things as well. So you worked really hard to come to this place where you want to be interacting with those students who have the same level of intellect and the interest and talents. Why would you open it up to everybody? You know, because I understand their reaction as well. Because sometimes it's very hard to pull those low achieving students to come and participate in some of these activities as well. It is very true. It is very true. So there are so many angles that you can look at, and I really recognize all the challenges as well. And technology is not going to be the solution for all. It can just help in certain ways, but it's not going to be the holy grail. So I think that it's going to be a very interesting ride for the next several years and see how things eventually shape. It is hard, but and I'm very slow as well, but I don't quit. I always come back and try again and again and again. And as I said earlier, that you get recognized only if you succeed. If you fail, you know what you can get. And I know that too. And I'm not afraid of failure, because I always learn from failures. So I'd rather fail faster and learn faster and move on faster. That's kind of my approach, and we'll see how long it can last. So I would love to share more when I come back. Any other? Maybe one last question.
Time for one more?
Yes.
Dr. Kim, it's a very impressive presentation. I guess the objective or the goal of learning is to becoming an educated person. I believe that the earlier motivation for learning is to survive, to learn how to do your job, then to begin to learn more as an educated person, as a knowledgeable person. The thing that bothers me, parents want their children to go to college, not because their motivation is to get educated or knowledgeable, but to make better money. Lately, there's a lot of newscasting, newspaper doing a lot of analysis. They are talking about return on investment of an MBA. Now that bothers me a lot. We're supposed to treat the investment of time and energy and money into an MBA because you're looking for the return based on money. So I'm wondering, this kind of learning is beautiful, but I'm curious to see how you view on the critique from the news casting, and most parents, want us to go because we want to get a better pay.
I'm a parent of two daughters as well, And what I tell my daughters is that I want you to be what you want to be. And I don't care if you go to college or not. I really don't care if they go to college or not. I don't push them to go to college. But I want them to experience the whole world before they die. Life is very short. And I share this with my children all the time. Life is short. Never waste it. Experience the world and find your own talent and be what you meant to be. And that's what I tell them. So thank you very much.